Welcome to the May 1st edition of Colorado Inside Outpost, giving a special web exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on the latest updates in the Denver city elections. We are only a few days away from what would probably be the main election for some seats and just the first election for some of the city council seats. Patty Calhoun from Westward, Mayor Hancock's probably a lock to go ahead and win since he has facing no competition. But that seems to be affecting the rest of the race. As of April 28th, I think the Denver Post reported that only 10% of the ballots had come in. Is the lack of mayoral competition going to skew how the city council turns out?
I think it'll definitely cut down some on the turnout, but what it really is cutting down on is any discussion of where this city is going. You've had some neighborhood meetings because some of these city council races are very hotly contested with, 6, 7, 8 candidates, but we needed more candidates. We had 8 candidates running when Hancock ran 4 years ago, and we had a very robust discussion of the city and what was going on, and it was a good discussion to have, and it's clearly a discussion we need to have now, not just what's going on with gangs, not just what's going, and I'm not just talking about the sheriff's department, but what's going on outside in the rest of the city with violence. We need to talk about growth. We need to talk about what's happening with development, and those conversations aren't happening. If we'd had a competitive race for mayor, even just a respectable second candidate who wouldn't win but would get a debate going, we would have had more discussion.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Do you think we're going to, after everything is said and done, go back and look that, without a real mayoral competition, here's how it affected some of these races where they probably could have gone differently?
No, because, for example, Wellington Webb, in his when he won his third term, didn't face very strong competition, and nobody ever went back and then regretfully looked at how that might or might not have affected city council races or anything else. Mayor Hancock, one of the things I really agree with him about, and since I agree, he's got very, very good chances. We can't call it yet, but he's clearly ahead. About making Denver more bike-friendly, pedestrian-friendly. Boulder has done that in a very successful way, and I think it's a great thing for the community, not only for health, but just, back to the whole Jane Addams urban development approach, that when you get people physically out on the streets, interacting with each other, biking around, walking around, it's wonderful and really helps the city thrive. I wish he had a more constructive vision of how to do that doesn't have as the yang of its yin, making things harder for people to drive around. I think, again, Boulder is an example of how you can do lots of things to promote biking, walking, people being outdoors and on the streets without trying to destroy or suppress the mobility of people who do choose to use automobiles, which is also a legitimate choice in this country.
Eric Sonneman, political analyst, we're likely to see at least a handful of runoffs in the city council races. There's some interesting things going on with the at-large race. There's things going on with the auditor's race. There's a lot to pick from, just not a whole lot of coverage. What do you think?
Yeah, I identify with both what Patty and David have said. I think they're right on. To David's point about Wellington Webb's third term, you could add John Hickenlooper's second term, which was a complete shoo-in. I'm personally outraged here that the lead candidate on the mayoral ballot, the #1 position, a gentleman named Sekou. His real name is Chairman Sekou, but he could not be listed on the ballot as Chairman Sekou because I guess there's some law against honorific titles being listed on the ballot. So were it not for that, he might be very much in this race, tongue firmly in cheek. Patty's core point is the right point, which is this has deprived the city. We've had district-wide conversations, somewhat about district-wide issues in a handful of neighborhoods or parts of the city. We haven't had a citywide conversation about the big issues facing the city, and the city would have been served by that conversation, no matter who won the election, including Mayor Hancock, in all likelihood, having been reelected. The auditor's race, I mean, we've talked about it sometimes before at this table, Dennis Gallagher being term limited and leaving that post. I actually thought early on that Tim O'Brien had an opportunity to really frame a campaign and frame a message as the non-political guy, the professional auditor, if you will, but the person away from politics. I'm not sure he's done that sufficiently. I would assume Chris Nevitt probably breezes into that office. The council races, both districts and at large, we'll know soon enough. It would not surprise me. It has been a very long time since an incumbent city council person has lost a seat. To my recollection, it goes back to 1987. So what's that, 28 years. I think there's significant odds, and I don't know who it is, but whether it's one of the at-large council people or perhaps council person up in District 1, some incumbent may not be coming back to council come June.
Susan Green, editor of ColoradoIndependent.com. Are we going to see any surprises after at least the May 5th election day?
I think the surprise will go back to what everybody else has been talking about, the lack of discourse. We have real pressing issues in the city beyond bike paths and sidewalks. We have whole ethnic groups being priced out of the city, whole demographic, not just ethnic groups, but levels of income people who cannot live in Denver anymore. As I said earlier, we have had 5 to 7 gang-related shootings in northeast Denver in the past week. The discourse hasn't taken place because there's been no race for mayor, but the discourse wasn't taking place in the last 4 years. I mean, Marvin Booker, Michael Hancock inherited the case of Marvin Booker. He inherited a lot of excessive force cases. We have actually paid out way more in excessive force settlements than Baltimore has, as the Colorado Independent is reporting. We have problems here. And I've watched Mayor Hancock for the past 4 years. I've asked questions of Mayor Hancock in the past 4 years. And unlike, I understand he's an incumbent and probably he was going to get reelected anyway because he's got money. But unlike Mayor Webb and unlike Mayor Hickenlooper, not that they were super chatty on controversial topics, but they make him look like Oprah. I mean, I'm sorry, they look like Oprah compared to him. He's not talking about anything. The guy was silent for 4 years on Booker, even after a $6 million settlement was meted out by a jury and the city approved it. He's not addressed the fact that he demoted the sheriff 9 months ago and there's no new sheriff to replace him. I mean, there are major holes in this conversation and they were going on long before this race even started, or lack of race.
That's all the time we have for Colorado Inside Out postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.